There's a lot of uncertainty, but let's then speak to the EFF Deputy President, Floyd Shivambu, who's joining us in studio. Floyd, thank you so much for coming in. The President expected to address the nation. We're not sure what time. What are you expecting to hear?
Look, we expect Mr. Cyril Ramaphosa to resign as a head of state and president of South Africa. There is no any other rational expectation we can have, except the fact that he must fall on his sword. So what basically got to happen is that when DG Fraser laid the criminal charges against him on what transpired in Phala Phala, instead of taking full accountability and responsibility, he went to concoct a story, a fiction, and even submitted that under oath to Parliament of a Mr. Hazim who came with $580 US, which does not exist. The Hazim doesn't even have the surname, doesn't have the address, doesn't have any identity, and created a fiction that was trying to fool Parliament into believing that there is no grounds to answer. And at least the honorable judges that presided, and an advocate, of course, who presided over the independent panel, were able to expose the lies that were told by Mr. Ramaphosa that this is just fiction. There is enough grounds for him to be held accountable in terms of Section 89 of the Constitution that deals with the removal of a president. So he must resign. Remember that when the case was opened against Cyril Ramaphosa, we had said he must step aside. We are now saying he must step down. He must leave the office of President of the Republic of South Africa.
So what happens then if he doesn't? And I'll then add this so that you answer it in one go. What happens if it doesn't, and then next week you get the caucus of the ANC using its own majority to try and stifle this particular process from going ahead?
Look, in terms of the parliamentary process, is that one, to activate Section 89 of the Constitution, you must first, as represented parties, write to the Speaker of Parliament, and the ATM did so and gave reasons as to why he should be held accountable in terms of Section 89. And then an independent panel was established to then investigate if there's adequate and enough grounds to remove him as a president. And that is the conclusion that was presented yesterday and was released through the ATC process of Parliament, that he must step down. Now, when we meet on the 6th of December, as the National Assembly, we are then going to just need a simple majority to give a go-ahead for the impeachment process to proceed. There is no rational grounds, none whatsoever, that Parliament will reject a very comprehensive and clear report that was produced by distinguished and honorable judges and advocates, like people who have got integrity in terms of the work that they've been doing.
So you don't see a repeat of the past?
Look, there will never be any defense. And as a matter of fact, we can state this, that even if the ANC Luthuli House can try to instruct members of Parliament to vote against the impeachment process, they won't do it. Majority of members of Parliament of the ANC are going to vote for the impeachment process to proceed so that we can remove this imposter president who has been acting like he is God, like he is everything else that has ever been brought into South Africa since the slice of bread, in terms of what happens. So he must be held accountable. He won't be president by the end of this year, in terms of what we believe and what is basically rational and normal, because he has been lying. And in the process of telling all these lies, he even admits to so many crimes that he has committed. Because in South Africa, by the way, it is not allowed to trade with any other currency except the rand. But he did say that in Phala Phala he was selling buffaloes which are not even collected by the imaginary Hazim, which he has created in his own mind using US dollars, and is unable to even account entirely to just where the money came from and what is the actual amount of money that has been hidden in the mattresses and sofas and pillows in Phala Phala. So we can't have a liar president who remains in office, who has violated the Constitution, who has undermined the integrity of our democratic project. He must step down completely, and he must be removed as a president. And we, as Parliament, by the way, even after he stepped down, we can still consider whether we continue with the impeachment processes so that we can cancel all the benefits that former heads of state receive when they leave office.
So I was going to then go to this question because, you know, Parliament, remember, in the Zondo Commission's report, it didn't emerge glorious, you know, and how things happened with state capture. Are you hopeful that, as you've asked the Speaker for a secret ballot now, that is likely to be granted?
Look, we'll ask for a secret ballot. If the Speaker does not grant it, I can tell you now that even on an open vote, Ramaphosa will be taken through an impeachment process. ANC members of Parliament and majority of Parliament are going to vote that we remove Ramaphosa. We must actually allow the impeachment process to proceed accordingly. So there is no fear about that, because even if, by the way, Parliament can vote to not allow the impeachment process to proceed, there is no rational and balanced court of law in South Africa that can say that such a decision is rational. There is no rational basis to disallow an impeachment process as is recommended by the independent panel.
The DA says that it wants early elections if this happens and the dissolution of Parliament. Are you supporting that call?
Look, we don't support the DA's call for early elections. The elections are scheduled for 2024 May. And that is when we're going to have the next elections. The ANC won elections in 2019 in their government. Now, there was no independent candidates who contested elections. The ANC must deal with its internal issues as to who becomes president. But this one must leave office as soon as yesterday.
And, you know, one of the other things that has been really quite clear here has been that there's quite a lot going on now with the ANC. I mean, tomorrow they're going for the ANC meeting, but you then today released a statement saying that you are unhappy with the president not showing up for the NCOP. But are you surprised that he wouldn't show up given what is happening? Because it looks like the political party now is at a scramble to try and see what it does now.
Look, we accept that Mr. Ramaphosa is the outgoing president, but he is still the incumbent president. It must not be easy to just forego and just disregard parliamentary programs. So once we have scheduled the question session, which is compulsory in terms of the rules of the National Assembly, in terms of the Constitution, in terms of holding the executive accountable, particularly a president, he must do everything in his power, whether he is in crisis or not, to go and answer questions in Parliament. That is basically what we're condemning, that it must be very difficult for a sitting head of state to just disregard Parliament, because it is an important instrument of accountability, and that is why we condemned his going AWOL without sound reasons, because it's not like he can't go and answer questions in Parliament. There's also even now a provision of hybrid participation where you can participate via a virtual platform. So it was unacceptable that Cyril Ramaphosa did not appear in the NCOP today. So
the Section 89 report is out. I wonder where does then this place all the other investigations that are currently happening? I mean, I know that you're still unhappy with the fact that we don't have the Public Protector's report, but we still have other investigations that are pending here. Where does it place them?
Look, the other investigations must continue. Mr. Ramaphosa must still explain to the Reserve Bank as to what is the original source of the dollars that were found in his farm. He must still be criminally held accountable for trading in foreign currency against the laws of this country. The revenue collector, SARS, must still hold him accountable. The SAPS must still investigate the so many crimes that happened in Phala Phala. The FIC must still give a report as to illegal money movements and money laundering that occurred in Phala Phala. The Public Protector, incompetent as the incumbent is, must still produce a report as to the abuse of power of calling Hage Geingob of Namibia to then say he must arrest people who had taken the money from Phala Phala. So all of those things must still continue. We are not postponing anything. We remove him as a president of the Republic. He must fall on his sword today if possible. And then the investigations must still continue, because he must be held accountable. No one is above the law in South Africa. He must be held accountable fully and fully to the highest extent by all the institutions that are involved.
On what basis, though, are you calling the current acting Public Protector incompetent?
Because she fails to produce a report which should have been produced long time ago. Here is a panel which receives more or less the same information and inputs in terms of what transpired in Phala Phala. It took them 45 days to produce a very comprehensive report, which even if there's an attempt to review it in court, will never win. No one will win in terms of that. Very competent process that was handled properly. But because of vested interest, the incumbent acting public protector is delaying and protracting the process because she wants to let him go and be just let go without being held accountable through the necessary institutions. So she's incompetent because she's unable to produce a report within the requisite time. By the way, the Public Protector Act and the Executive Ethics Act obliges her to produce a report within 30 days. She did not do so, and that represents incompetence.
So I've got two more questions, very briefly, because we almost out of time. I suppose then, looking at what is happening right now around the president, I mean, he is the ANC president essentially, and then the president of the country. I suppose that the EFF, given the fact that you've been talking about this 1 million campaign, you're now looking at ramping up your campaign to then be able to possibly take advantage of this moment, I suppose. That's why then you would then be seen to be talking more about this, to then get more votes in 2024, because it doesn't look good at all currently.
Look, the EFF is going to be government from 2024 moving forward. We have got more than 1 million members now in terms of the process that we have engaged in, and provinces have done very well, and all regions have contributed much more meaningfully. Branches, ground forces of the EFF in terms of what got to happen. The Commander-in-Chief will be speaking as to what then becomes the way forward. How do we turn the quantity into quality so that we're able to prepare the ground for a total and decisive victory in 2024? The ANC is dying a natural death. Whether it's Ramaphosa, whoever is in office, the ANC is not about to recover. We're going to just add the final nail onto the coffin. We take them out of power, and then we establish a revolutionary socialist government of the economic freedom fighters.
As a final question, very briefly, we've got 20 seconds. Janusz Walush is going to be staying in prison until he then gets clearance from the medical team. Your members march today. How do you react to this breaking news?
Look, Janusz Walush is not supposed to go out of prison. We have joined as the EFF with the legal process to rescind the Constitutional Court judgment, which we think is irrational. You cannot kill a revolutionary. You cannot bring the country into like the edge of destabilization of war by killing a revolutionary, Chris Tembisilehani, and then you are just let go like that. We will never agree on the release of Janusz Walush, a murderer, from prison. So we're going to do everything in our power to make sure that he stays in prison until death. All right, Floyd, thank you so much for coming through. That is the EFF Deputy President, Floyd Shivambu.